My name is Clara Towson, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
I am Francisca George, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Susan Leemans, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom. Yeah.
My name is Zainab Sammaz, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hey guys, my name is Sasha Vickery, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hi, my name is Lloyd Harris, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Jan Faria, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Yes.
Take one. Well done.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Paolini, and I'm a friend of the show.
Wow, Jasmine, you got it in one time.
Ready? Play.
Well, hello there, and welcome to WTA Weekly. And I'm very pleased to be joined by the real Mario Bacardi. Mario, how are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm okay. Yeah, yesterday I got hacked and I lost everything on Twitter, but I'm trying to do new things again, and let's see if I can regain my account. Now I have a new one and I put it in under my name. Once it will show on the screen. Yeah, exactly. This is my new account, just with, let's say, 10,000 less people than it had before, but it's fine.
We're starting again. It's a shame that happened, but yeah. The annoying thing is, A, you can't get your old account back, and B, that you ended up losing your account because you decided to be nice to someone.
Yeah, maybe. Unfortunately, okay. This is what happened, but okay. Plenty to be excited about the tennis, so it's fine. If everyone wants to give a follow there, it's fine. I'd be happy.
Yeah. If we can give Mario a follow, that would be brilliant. Daniel in the chat for the live version of this. If you wait, I'm sure our producer will update you as to when that starts again, depending on obviously rain and everything else like that. I guess when we stop having a producer, that will probably give you an idea. Thank you for following Mario as well, Jean. Really appreciated. So yeah, we can go and follow Mario. He's on the screen now, and if you are listening to the podcast, go watch the YouTube version so you can see what the Twitter account now is. I'm not reading that out more because I don't have to spell it.
Yeah, and especially don't reply to messages from my old account. To your for your safety.
Yes, don't worry. I was already warned. I remember I'd logged. I've genuinely been on Twitter once in the last 2 days, and I have gone on and I've checked it. I've got a message. Oh, I bet you it's from Mario. It wasn't. It was from someone else. Not a hack either. It was replying to something we were talking about to do with the Australian Open. That's beside the point, because the Australian Open is nowhere near this time of year. Where we are at now is Stuttgart, because clay season proper starts on the WTA. Not like the hard true of Charleston or the altitude clay of Bogota. We have true clay. Oh wait, hang on, it's indoor clay again, isn't it?
Fine. There's also Rouen, which is also indoor, I think.
Yes, Stuttgart and Rouen are both indoor clay. So there we go. That is the situation. The situation right now is we're almost a proper clay, but we have to wait for Rome for that. Let's be honest. And I know Mario is counting down the days to Rome more than any of the rest of us. All right. Well, let's look at Stuttgart first. Before we go dig into the draw, I want to just talk about Stuttgart as a tournament, because it seems to me, Mario, and this draw kind of reflects that, is Stuttgart feels like another WTA finals, and except bigger. And with the fact we now have 6 out of top 10 there, like the top 10 there would have been 7 had Jung Chin-Wen not pulled out. The tournament is feeling pretty stacked, and it's indoors and it's got all the bells and whistles on it. I don't know how it feels to you, this tournament.
Yeah, it's but actually even before the mandatory rules for player, even since the beginning of the tens, when Sharapova used to win there three times in a row, there's always been lots of top players, and yeah, right now it's just basically an elite event, meaning that Madrid and Rome, it's two 1,000 events, so we will see also lots of players outside the top 50 and everything. And here it's just all the current top players except for the wild cards and some qualifiers, because maybe yeah. And so it's always very interesting and very fun to watch. I actually like also the venue. Also lots of memories, as I told you, from the early years where I started following tennis. It's always been a stud tournament, so it feels way more than a 500, meaning that winning this tournament, it's already it already has quite a meaning in terms of the clay season, because basically you have to beat all the fellow top players in order to win. Of course, maybe there's also a little bit less pressure, meaning that of course, the bigger the stage and the bigger the pressure feels also for the players who reach the final, for example. But it's always interesting to look into this tournament and to see which players starts this clay season in the right way, and maybe they feel like the bigger threats in also in Madrid and Rome. Not only the top players, but for example, other stories may happen. I don't know, Kostyuk last year had a very good tournament, a fantastic tournament for her. So you start getting an idea about what the upcoming clay season may look like, and it feels nice, I have to say.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, it does sort of give you a good idea, particularly for when we get to Madrid, because certainly even before the Iga Swiatek era began, like Stuttgart always felt like a good warm up for Madrid. And actually, it seems to be traditionally, it seems to be a good reflection of where players are at that particular moment in a season. I'm thinking back to the 2021 tournament when Ash Barty played Arena Sabalenka in the final. Even before, then we get the Swiatek Sabalenka finals the following year. Swiatek, Rebecca the semi-final last year with Rebecca winning the tournament. It seems to me that it's a tournament where, despite the status of a 500, the top players usually show up, maybe incentivized by that Porsche that's always in the background. As Jean says in the chat, a mini 1000 is probably
also because the clay season is quite short for most players, at least in terms of this top event. You have like Stuttgart, Madrid, Rome, and a French Open. So for most of top players, and right now I feel like kind of every top players doesn't really dislike to play on clay. Even we'll talk about it, but I feel like even, I don't know, Sabalenka and Gauff would probably have already won more if not for Iga on this surface, because they more or less don't lose anything compared to the hard courts. And so it always feel like it's treated as in the same way as Madrid, Rome, in terms of how serious and motivated the players feel when they are playing there.
Yeah, I can tell that. So we know we're in for a really, really good tournament then. Set things going for that clay season. And there's a fair few storylines to keep an eye on in this draw. Let's start with the player who's on the screen, Iga Swiatek. And I think the title of the show actually probably is a very apt question. We have to credit producer John for setting that up. I guess, I'm going to put that to you. Does Iga Swiatek's season start here?
Well, of course, her season has already quite started, and her results would be even satisfying for most of the players, meaning that she still has shown some consistency in reaching, I don't know, semi-final stage, quarter-final stage at most tournament that she played. But yeah, we're talking about a player who cannot consider herself satisfied with that. Actually, she hasn't reached any finals since last year's clay season, because of last final was at the French Open where she won. She completed the treble, Madrid, Rome, and the French Open. Actually, in Stuttgart, she had the only loss of her clay season last year, at least the spring clay season, because of course then there's the Olympics. But of course, this year there may be a different pressure on herself because, she last year, for example, she arrived in Stuttgart having won Indian Wells, and this was already a big title in her cabinet for the season. So even though of course clay being her favorite surface always puts herself under some sort of bigger pressure, regardless of her results overall. But yeah, this year in particular, because for a player like her, also many points to defend for the ranking. But even without looking at the ranking, just that lack of, I don't know, that feeling of playing a final, being involved in a final, trying to put your hands on the trophy, it's something that she is not used to. And so I guess now being back on her favorite surface, she will feel a lot of this pressure, and I'm interested to watch her playing and to see how she will handle this sort of pressure. If maybe being on the clay will make her feel a bit more free because it's some courts where she feels like at home, or if maybe, I don't know, she will suffer a bit more. We'll see. Of course, also we will look into the competition, which is different this year maybe than the past seasons. But yeah, overall, I feel like even though she is the second seed, of course, she's kind of the main character of this tournament because of course, the pressure that there is on herself, because favorite surface where she kind of dominates the tour, and she lacks titles since a bit of time. And so, of course, there are some questions, let's say, that we will try to answer already this week, even of course throughout the World Clay season.
Yes, this is the week where we start to see the questions answered about where Iga Swiatek really is, because if she's underperforming on clay, then she's on trouble. Whereas everywhere else is kind of, you can give and take a bit. I mean, I said in the last WTA Weekly, or no, the Miami WTA Weekly, because we had Charleston since, that I would give Iga's season a B. A trophy would have made it an A. Or a big trophy would have made it an A. I've heard some people give her season or a C, or but that's kind of, for me, to get a C, you have to lose much earlier than she has been.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like it's a solid but not spectacular start. But when you're used to spectacular, like with Iga Swiatek, then it becomes a problem visually. So I guess for her, there is going to be some pressure on this clay season. That's where it starts. And I think what ramps up the pressure in Stuttgart is Jelena Ostapenko is lurking in the draw. I don't know if you've seen this, Mario, but she could play Ostapenko in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, let's say that with Ostapenko, being 2 matches away is still quite far away, because we know that with Ostapenko, lots of things can happen. But yeah, for sure, it's, I think, the biggest obstacle in the draw, talking about the names and the matchups, because there are other big names. I don't know, Navarro is a big name, but all of them. But, Haddad Maia is in a bad moment. Vekic shouldn't maybe trouble Iga a lot on this surface. And so Ostapenko, of course, feels like the biggest obstacle between Iga Swiatek and the semifinals. So, yeah, this is for sure a name that everybody has already, let's say, circled in Iga's draw, because we know about that 0-5 in the head-to-head, and I don't know. Then Stuttgart is also a place where I feel like Ostapenko should be able to play good tennis if she wants to, if she is in good form. So I don't know. If it happens, it will be interesting. But of course, we have to say that with Ostapenko, it's not guaranteed. We know that she may pull off the biggest week of her life, and maybe one of the worst. And it's always unpredictable. It's always unpredictable. But yeah, if she's on, of course, she's for sure the biggest obstacle.
Yeah. And indoor clay is probably a surface that Ostapenko would probably quite like, given it's combining some of the elements of her favourite surfaces. Watch this space. Obviously, Ostapenko and Vekic have both got qualifiers in their opening round. We know 3 out of 4 of them. The last qualifying match is still ongoing, but so far it could be Diana Yastremska, Veronika Kudermetova, or Alexandra Sasnovich, who are the 3 qualifiers so far. Yeah. And then we wait to see whether Jana Fett or Rebecca Masarova is going to be the 4th. But I guess if Ostapenko or Vekic get Yastremska or Kudermetova, that could be quite tough as an opener. Ostapenko Yastremska would be somewhat explosive, I have a feeling. If that happened, I'm kind of hoping that does. But yeah, you're right. So other than Ostapenko in the draw, really the only other name I'm maybe circling as a threat to Iga to stop her from getting to the final would be her potential semi-final opponent, Mira Andreeva, who, despite being the 6th seed, and maybe might be the overall favourite to make the semis, although Pegula seems to have picked up form. So, let's say that a Pegula-Andreeva match could be quite competitive. But I think of the options, Andreeva making the semis would then be okay, is she going to beat Iga 3 times in a row? Is she in the mix for the title?
Well, yeah, I agree with you. I think Pegula getting form probably makes Andreeva even more the favorite, meaning that, of course, Pegula has got form and she will be very high on confidence. But, this change, starting a new swing in Europe, having played and won lots of matches, probably may play a role in how Pegula does in this tournament. So I would say that, yeah, I also consider Andreeva the favorite. It's not an easy opener for Mira because, Kostyuk has been in the final last year, so probably also place where Marta has many good memories from last year, and she may play a good match. Who knows? So it's not an easy draw for Andreeva. Even the second round, it's tough for her because either Alexandrova or Samsonova, we know that are both players who can also be on and off and may still trouble somebody like Andreeva, everybody in the draw. I remember, for example, Samsonova making life incredibly difficult for Iga, where Iga had the streak going on 3 years ago. Alexandrova also is a player, when she's on, we know how effortless can make tennis look. So Andreeva has probably the toughest draw among all the top players, because it feels like, I know that this draw is overall super competitive, but despite Andreeva being in an incredible moment and definitely now being one of the very, very, very best players in the draw, still it feels like all Andreeva's matches can be very tricky.
Yeah, you're right. That section is quite busy. And actually, that half of the draw contains probably my 3 kind of blockbuster first round matches. Because Andreeva Kostyuk has to be the match of the first round. No questions.
Yeah.
With Alexandrova Samsonova being an explosive first round match, that could be a lot of fun if Samsonova's on. Alexandrova's a little bit more reliable at the moment. And then Navarro Haddad Maia, I mean, on paper is interesting, but Haddad Maia is not in form right now due to recent results. She's not done well at Billie Jean King Cup for Brazil, and in general seems to be playing a bit hot and cold. So that one could be a damp squib, although they're both quite athletic players, so that could also go quite long. Who knows? But for me, those 3 matches are the ones where I looked at the draw and went, "Ooh, yeah, I want to watch that."
Yeah, there's also good Potapova Towson because I feel like indoor conditions are usually pretty good for Potapova, so it may be very competitive, that one as well. And of course, we are in the opposite side of the draw because the winner of this match will face Sabalenka. So even for Arena, a start which will be quite tough on, as their first match on the clay.
I was going to ask you about that because, yeah, I spotted that as well. Like, that would be if Towson beats out Potapova, which, if Towson's healthy, I'm giving her the edge. And a third match between Sabalenka and Towson this year, I think looks quite fascinating, especially as an opener for Arena, because we saw how much Towson frustrated her in the Australian Open. That the fact that match was 2 sets is not reflective of how competitive and how close it was. And then that win that Towson then got in Dubai
was straightforward.
Was huge. So I'm interested to see now Sabalenka may have picked up a bit of confidence, whether that's a bit different, whether Towson now believes that she can stop Sabalenka and become another kryptonite player. I'd be looking forward to that if it happens.
Well, yeah, and we know that Sabalenka quite struggles against these sort of players, although not now as much as in the past. But, against these sort of very calm and poised ball strikers, which also can trouble her on return. And, of course, it will be lots of pressure on Sabalenka because against somebody like Towson serves really well. So Sabalenka will feel also a lot of pressure on her own serve. She will need to serve really well. And we know that, Arena is usually so strong that it's not like she always need to find the best serve day of her life when she's on court, and she can still win kind of 90% of the matches. But against somebody like Towson, it will really be required a high level on the serve as well. And, we know that it's not easy when you're playing your first match in quite a while. Of course, Sabalenka now comes, with high confidence because she had a very good Sunshine Double, the final in Indian Wells, especially the title in Miami. So she also got her first big title of the season, back to number 1 in the race. So she doesn't have really pressure of the number 1 in the ranking during the clay season because it should be quite safe. So, but still, I would say that considering that last year she lost in a final in Madrid, she lost in a final in Rome, and French Open, she reached the quarterfinal, had that issue, probably made a difference in that match against Andreeva, most likely did. I think she's going to be very hungry in this clay season because it feels like last year she played too well to not win any title on the clay. So, I feel like Sabalenka herself will feel very hungry and under that sort of even positive pressure. Like, I really want to win a title on this surface because I'm doing very well here on the clay. But, of course, we know that last year, for example, she ran into the biggest clay court player of the decade, one of the best 2 or 3 of the century. So it's always tough to, of course, grab titles for her. But she has, of course, the level required. She's an amazing clay court player.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Sabalenka is an underappreciated clay court player. Probably, I think if it wasn't for Iga Swiatek, she'd have a Rome title, which is slow clay. She can perform well on the surface regardless. I think this Towson match for Sabalenka is probably going to be her toughest test before the final. I'm looking at her draw. I'm feeling confident in her matchups with pretty much anyone else in her half, apart from unless Coco Gauff switches her season back on, which is not out of the question.
Yeah, Coco Gauff, it's the kind of weird season because the way it started, especially considering how well the 24 season ended. So having started the season this well at the United Cup, it felt like, oh my God, this can really be her year. She can really win many titles this year if she keeps going this way. But yeah, we know that things haven't really gone her way since that moment. especially I would say, because even the start of the Australian Open was in that way, but since that loss against Badosa in the quarterfinals at the Australian Open, something has changed in her season. We have seen again some difficulties on the forehand, again some serve performances which were not as good as those that she put in between the end of the 24 and the start of 25, where it looked like she had solved those issues with the second serve, at least, until some extent. And these problems have risen again in this period. So I don't know. Miami was a little bit better. I felt like this, and even the loss against Bencic, it was probably, let's say, her best loss in my opinion between those she had. Meaning that I felt like she was playing better tennis than in other tournaments. But yeah, of course, it's not enough for Coco Gauff. And clay is also for her a surface. I say that for me, both Gauff and Sabalenka in similar situation. Both I feel like would have won more on this surface if not for Iga Swiatek. Last year she had a very consistent clay season, at least reaching semis back to back in Rome and the French Open, and even putting on decent performances against Swiatek, even though they were both losses. So yeah, it's an important swing for her, and she really needs some good results. So yeah, lots of pressure on herself as well. I feel like her and Iga are more or less in the same situation, even though the results have been a bit different. But they are both in that situation that back on courts where they can do well, they need to show their best level in order to silence a little bit of the noise that there is around them.
Yeah, I would agree. But we can't help but make noise. Yeah, I agree with you. I think what might be interesting for Gauff is what it might be like for her if she has to hit the ground running in a draw. Because often she scraps her way through players that she should be able to beat, and then shifting gears to beating the next level up is a bit of a problem. She could start her run Stuttgart against Danielle Collins.
Yeah.
Unless Tatiana Marina decides to drive Collins crazy with slices, I somehow think Collins should be able to manage it, especially in these conditions. But yeah, Collins' start would be it's one of those. It could be a double-edged sword for Gauff. It could continue to be pressure for her to deal with and force, and so because she needs to be confident to play well, or it's going to motivate her to come out swinging. And I think that could be quite an interesting match in terms of storylines for the season, were that to happen. I guess in all that chaos, I think really you're looking at Coco Gauff, Danielle Collins, or Jasmine Paolini making the semis, maybe, because Paolini seems to like it in Stuttgart as well. And I could see her being a factor here. She's got Ivelisse, and then one of the other German wildcards. She should be favourite in either of those matchups.
She has a good draw.
Yeah, until she gets to either Gauff, Collins, or Maria. And then let's see how she handles that match. I think she's a great competitor. I think she'll approach that really, really well. And let's see what kind of impact Mark Lopez has for her as well, as he's been her coach as of yesterday.
Yeah, just, quickly answering to Ghosty. I know that, it doesn't really make sense saying would have won more if not for that player. What I want to mean is that there's not a drop, in my opinion, in terms of the level they can express on the surface compared to the hard courts, for example, while for other players may really be clay a tough. For example, Jessica Pegula is still always, a consistent player, but on clay, you feel like her level, drops compared to fastest conditions, like, fast hard courts when we play North America. So, that is what I want.
I think you also might be replying to me because I said if not for Iga Swiatek, she'd have a Rome title. Sabalenka would have a Rome title, and Sabalenka's already got Madrid titles, so we know she's won clay titles. I'm talking about specifically slow clay. She can perform.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think to kind of add to your point,
He's an eight, Muko.
Yeah, he's trying to wind us up. I think, that would be wise. To add to your point, the level of drop off from Sabalenka, depending on conditions, is actually not that big, unlike other players like you've mentioned.
Yeah, talking about Paolini, it's been, quite interesting to read that post when she announced that after 10 years, she ended her collaboration with Renzo Furlani, especially kind of the day after or 2 days after a good tournament for her in Miami, because she started playing again some very, very good tennis. But yeah, it can make sense, meaning that probably after 10 years they feel like together more than this they can do. And but even in order to stay where she got in the ranking and overall in the tennis world, she maybe needs some changes, some new challenges with some new coach, new team member. And now we got the news that it's Mark Lopez, which is a big name. And actually, I gotta say that in Italy, we weren't really expecting it. There were other things flying in the media. So it's been quite a surprise. And I'm very interested. For now, it will be something for the clay season. So until the French Open, they have reached an agreement. But who knows? I think that, of course, if things go in a good way, they will maybe can continue together, at least for the rest of the year. And we'll see. It's interesting. I usually like this decision when a player, especially at that age, Paolini is 29, try something new, because maybe they feel like they need to evolve in order to or to try something different in order to stay there where they got in the world. And so we'll see how it goes. I'm very, very interesting. Her draw, as you mentioned, it's quite okay, meaning that the first 2 rounds are good. Last year she had a good tournament, pushed Rybakina, which then won the title. And yeah, we'll see. Potential quarterfinal, it can be really good. So yeah, that's an interesting quarter, especially not because of maybe the first round matches, but because of the players involved. You always have some question regarding them week after week. You want to try to answer.
I really don't want to put down the Germans in that section, because obviously they could make it seem like they are really good quality players. They've just come off a really tough Billie Jean King Cup group, which we'll get to, by the way. If anyone's wondering why we're not talking about it yet, we usually do reviews first. We will get to Billie Jean King Cup. But yeah, just they haven't had a great result there. But yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, it's an interesting quarter. And with your point about Paolini, she's got a template for success. Look at Jessica Pegula, split up with David Witt, who did a lot of good work for her for a few years last year. And then initially didn't seem like it was going well, but Mark McCline and Mark Knowles seem to have done a really good job. Definitely she's still with Mark McCline anyway. And she then got to the US Open final, and was the second best player on a US hardcourt after Sabalenka. So really, Paolini's got that kind of model to follow there as a potential success. So yeah. And that's why we're not ruling Pegula out of doing something in the. I know that we said that earlier, but like she could still do something in this tournament. I know we're saying it's not necessarily conditions that she loves, but fast clay is not something that she would dislike. She's a Madrid finalist.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, indeed. Well, about Pegula, what to say? Just she's doing really great. Started the year with a lot of ups and downs. Maybe the first tournaments, especially that Australian Open early loss, it was a bit disappointing, considering. But yeah, overall, I would say that especially with how she's done now between Madrid and Charleston, she really, now fully okay, back to her best ranking of number 3. And she has a very good chance for getting to number 2 in the clay season. because, if we consider the ranking without all the clay points, she is second with almost 2,000 points advantage to Gauff, who is third in this standing. So, she has a really good chance to making it, even by just, having solid results without anything spectacular. So let's see. It's, I feel like, of course, it's not something you stay there thinking about, but everything you can get more in your resume as a player and your career, it's always nice. And, a player that, at times she starts flying under the radar. Why? When there's like 2-3 weeks when she doesn't play her best, she starts flying under the radar. And it's not one of the players we usually talk the most. But yeah, she's always there since years and years now.
Yeah, good summary of Pegula's career, really, there, Mario. She just gets there with solid results and always seems to fly under the radar. And then she wins something. Go, oh yeah, she's actually a really good player. And we have to keep reminding ourselves of that. So there's a lot of really good players in the Stuttgart draw. I have a gut feeling of which way this draw is going to go. And you know how good my gut feelings are after several disastrous predictions, not least the Miami one.
It's fine.
Anyway, Mario, I get your which was the worst? These are the two worst predictions I've probably ever put on Talking Tennis. Which was worse? No, for me. Which was worse? Me predicting Elena Rybakina to win Miami 2025 or Simona Halep to win US Open 2022?
I think Rybakina, because
okay, the worst prediction.
Rybakina was having solid results, but there was not, probably looking back, really the mood to see her doing so well. I know that Halep also never had the incredible success at the US Open, but was arguably the most informed player of the moment, or one of the best players of that moment. So probably Rybakina, but we all had the disastrous predictions.
Okay.
Many of them.
Yes. Oh, yeah, there were a lot out there. That was a bit of fun question out there. So putting that out there, are you willing to stick your neck out for how you see the result of this draw going in Stuttgart?
Yeah. I'll maybe, we'll look, a bit too optimistic about the top players, but I have the feeling we may back another final here between Sabalenka and Swiatek.
Sabalenka Swiatek in Stuttgart 3. Is that what we're going for?
Yeah, that's what I'm going for. The winner, I don't know. I feel like there are now the conditions to see, Sabalenka getting Iga on the clay, at least for, that match. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like going with Iga, it's a bit more like playing safe. I don't really know what to choose between them. I have good, valid reason to think both winning the title. Maybe just because, of that Porsche motivation. Let's say Sabalenka.
Yes, that Porsche is a great motivator. I know a lot of people would want to be tennis players just to win it. So I am also predicting Aryna Sabalenka to win the Stuttgart title.
But I think Iga will have a good clay season. I have to, I want to say among my predictions.
I would be shocked if Iga didn't win Rome, but depends on how Stuttgart Madrid goes. She didn't get herself injured, but Rome or Rome. I'm fairly confident she's the heavy favorite for, regardless.
Yeah, let's say that Rome is a bit like a French Open, but without probably that overwhelming pressure.
Yeah,
that maybe you may feel like, oh, this year she may suffer that pressure in Paris, even though she hasn't really so far. But Rome, it feels like kind of similar story in terms of the way she dominates there, but without that huge pressure of the French Open.
And she hasn't lost in Rome except by retirement since 2020.
Yeah, that's true.
So she arguably could say she loves it more than Roland Garros.
Yeah, probably.
Feels more comfortable there. So, yeah, I think obviously we'll get to a Rome preview when Madrid is done, but I think a lot of things might have to change over the next 3 weeks or so for Iga to kind of be deposed as me going for her winning Rome. But for Stuttgart, yes, I think we've traveled forward in time a few weeks. For Stuttgart, I'm going for Arena. I think we are in conditions where she can challenge Swiatek on clay. Yes, Swiatek's beaten her in straight sets the last 2 times they played here. I think we were seeing different Sabalenkas at that point. This is the most confident Arena Sabalenka has been going into Stuttgart, possibly ever. She is the world number 1 now, this time where she wasn't before. She's playing better overall. And she's got to the final 3 times and lost. So I think that, maybe it's time, because obviously she's to Barty in 21 as well. She's been knocking on the door. If it takes that one extra step, I think she's made that extra step. I think Arena Sabalenka is going to be winning Stuttgart 2025.
It feels like, right now, even though she had that couple weeks in Middle East, but overall, it feels like now she's kind of in her peak moment, meaning that she has played incredibly well lots of times. And for, many stretches of her career. But, the level of confidence in herself, the way, you never feel like she doesn't think like she really, I don't want to say is the favorite, but really has her chances by herself, has the level required at any court in the world. I would say that last year, for example, even though she lost in the final in both Madrid and Rome, I feel like if she's able to look back and that, to that clay season, it should really feel, in my opinion, a big confidence boost for her, even for the way she overcome lots of challenges against Vitolina, against Collins in Madrid. And then she beat her again in Rome. It really felt like, she played an amazing match against Navarro at the French Open as well. So, I don't know. I feel like she really has to be confident about her chances.
I think she has a reason to be, if she is. And I think that will probably make the difference in this matchup with Towson, if we get it. On the other hand, Towson could crash out first round, in which case she gets Potapova, which Potapova could probably irritate her a little bit. But I think Sabalenka has mastered the art of being a big hitter and is a lot more consistent and will probably win that one. And I think, she's definitely solid writing for the final, at least.
The difference will be, how well, the opponent serve. Even Towson in Dubai, she served extremely better than she did at the Australian Open. And that made, in my opinion, the difference, of course, in how that matchup went. Because, at the Australian Open, she let Sabalenka back again many times. There were chances that if she would have served a bit better in that particular moment, in Dubai, she put on a masterclass from that point of view. But of course, also Sabalenka was in a different version of herself, and that has to be said.
Indeed. Wow, there you go. That's your Stuttgart preview. We're going to just touch on a few talking points from other things that are going on or happening. Let's have a look forward. While we're looking forward, let's also look forward to Rouen 250 indoors.
Yeah, let me check the draw.
Alina Svitolina is the top seed. I'll give you the main facts whilst looking at the draw. Alina Svitolina is the top seed. She's the only top 30 player taking part.
Yeah.
Her first round is against Jill Teichmann, which is a rematch of a match she just had at the Billie Jean King Cup. So Teichmann's not looking forward to that. Linda Noskova is the second seed. So it's a pretty strong opening couple of seeds. I think the main points of interest are actually going to be a couple of people who are coming back to the main tour on this draw.
Yeah.
Bianca Andreescu is playing, and so is Elise Cornet.
Yeah.
Who retired last year. So, I don't know which is the bigger story there of those two, really. Andreescu coming back or Cornet coming back?
Well, I would say Andreescu just because, of course, we tend to forget that she is still, a young player, meaning that she can still have potentially, many things ahead of herself. But yeah, of course, there's this big question mark of her injuries and, the way her health and physical condition has been basically letting her down non-stop since more or less since that amazing 2019 that she got. So we'll see. I truly hope that she will be able to find back some consistency of play without getting injured again, without getting sick or anything again. She had many setbacks, too many for a player who, when she was 18, she kind of dominated the season because her winning record was outstanding in that 2019 year. And so I don't know. It's difficult to imagine to see that player back again, considering everything she went through. But of course, even simply seeing her being able to play, I don't know, full seasons on the tour without having to stop every 2 tournaments, and maybe slowly finding back some form and confidence, and then she may be back being a very dangerous player. So I don't know. Between the two, of course, this is for me the most interesting story. But of course, yeah, there's also Cornet, which is, she's a player we've watched since, I don't know, forever, at least for me, watching tennis. So, having her back on tour, we'll see how she goes.
Yeah, I think, I agree with you, because I think Andreescu, her comeback is, it's the same as always with Andreescu. It's coming back, hoping that she's going to be a factor again. She's got a long career ahead of her, provided that she doesn't get injured, which seems to happen every single year. And then with Cornet, however, we don't know whether this is a one-off comeback. She's not talking like it's a permanent comeback. She's just playing again suddenly.
Yes, exactly. Maybe it lasts until the French Open, for example.
Yeah, maybe playing doubles or something. So let's see how it goes with Cornet. But yeah, Andreescu, her coming back and her building something could be interesting. Obviously, she was one of the stories of Rosmalen last year in the 250 there, and making semi-finals and beating Osaka. No, she made the final, I think, in Rosmalen, didn't she? But she
made the final, she lost to Sasonova, I think.
Starting the grass season. So let's see how she starts the clay season. We're on a surface that I think she's underrated on.
Definitely. She has everything to play well there.
Exactly.
In my opinion.
And I guess the only other noteworthy point from the Rouen draw is, okay, here's something that might blow your mind. Bearing in mind how tennis was, the state of tennis, even 3-4 years ago? Maria Sakkari and Caroline Garcia are unseeded at a 250.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And they also had interesting first round matches. It feels like tricky for both. Sakkari against Butas Maneiro and Garcia against Blinkova. So we'll see. Of course, there are matches, that feel having a point of interest, and not just because they are playing, but because they really can be compelling matches with, maybe, tough battle between them and the opponent, because, for how things are right now, there's not a difference between them and and their opponent in that first round match. So we'll see. But it's interesting to know if they can be back again, at least at let's say a better level.
Yeah, let's see if Rouen wakes something up in people. But Butas Monero is a tough competitor for Sakkari, as we saw in the Billie Jean King Cup. Yes, we're going to now start looking back at this Billie Jean King Cup. We don't have all of the results yet because USA Slovakia is in progress, and that will decide the last member of the 6 players joining the quarterfinals. Obviously, Italy is playing. China is already in, as we have confirmation that, the finals are happening in Shenzhen in September. But I do want to start with Spain, because Jessica Buzas-Monero, I think it's becoming a bit of a reputation of being one of those tricky draws that people can run into, because this is the one group prediction that I got wrong so far, unless Slovakia turned around against the US. As it currently stands, Spain is the only one I got wrong, because I thought Czechia would make it out of the group. And Buzas-Monero beat Noskova, and Soror Sorribes Tormo beat Buskova. Spain didn't need Paula Badosa to get through. And I guess, is it time to start appreciating Jessica Buzas-Monero?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, she started getting, good wins to her, let's say, her portfolio, and many things to show. And even this win against Linda Noskova, and of course she also beat Haddad Maia. She really has been kind of the, let's say, MVP. And so, definitely. And we also know how she's put in trouble many players, many good players in the past. Of course, very famous, the upset that she got in round 1 at Wimbledon against the defending champion Vondrousova, even though Vondrousova then didn't play again in the season. So, there was also something with her. But, Budas is also one of these players. There are many on tour, of course, that, it's not like we talk about them every day. So at times we tend to, I don't want to say forget their name, but when we look at the match in itself, we tend to underestimate what they can do in the matchup and how they can trouble the opponent. And so then suddenly an upset like that against Noskova happens, and it's kind of an upset because of Noskova's reputation and how good she is. But at the same time, it can make sense if you realize, how Noskova is a player also that can suffer defeats like this one at times. And at times, maybe she's not still very much able to weather the storm and change the outcome of a match. At times, she tends to, get also a bit of negative body language. And Budas has been great in, using her opportunities and got these wins. And for sure, one of the storylines of this week of Billie Jean King Cup. And now, as you mentioned, there's Rouen. She faces Sakkari. So let's see how she, she takes this confidence that she got in the Billie Jean King Cup and brings it into the clay season, where she can definitely do well. We remember last year in Madrid, she was a story in Madrid last year. So we'll see if she can do it again.
Yeah, we'll see if she can do it again. And I think it'll be interesting. I certainly think Spain are going to be kind of the wild cards in there. Let's see if Badosa is tempted to turn up if they are in the finals. So yeah, they are definitely the I'd say, I don't know, would you call it, I guess I know, we just talked about it, like how much of a surprise is it that Spain won the group and not Czechia?
Well, I mean, a little bit, yes. Czechia, it has to be said that it was not the best possible moment for the team, when to held this event, because of course many of their players are suffering a little bit. I don't know, thinking about how, for example, Krejcikova is now injured since kind of forever, and
not playing.
Mukova, of course, not playing, and we know that she's also one of these players that you really need to be careful with the schedule, because she tends to suffer about many issues as well. So it still was a team that you maybe think they will come through this group, but at the same time it was a bit more vulnerable than usual, and it showed then. So let's say that it's a situation that maybe at the beginning you don't expect, but probably if you look back a little bit, and it may make sense. For example, if Buzas-Monero doesn't beat Noskova, then they still have to play the deciding doubles. You know, it was not as huge as a team as usual.
That's fair. That is fair. Yes, I still thought it was a pretty deep squad in terms of like talent, but yeah, that it was. Yeah, Spain obviously came through and they're pretty good. But yeah, the other qualifiers so far, as I said, the US are now 1-0 up.
Sorry, that this is a competition where talent, yeah, it's important, but probably rewards a bit more the experience and how you can handle this pressure of the team who is looking at you, the fellow player of your squad, waiting for your result, because it impacts, of course, the whole team's chances. So I feel like usually, for example, you have a player like Svitolina, even if she may struggle in some matches like she did, and we will look, but she's kind of a certainty. You become a team that is the favorite to pull through.
Yeah, that is true. And look, we saw that throughout as for the other qualifiers as well. Japan got through earlier today in a tough match against Canada.
Even though Mboko is still kind of
Mboko's lost
on a
only
roll
2 matches this year.
Yeah, he's still on a roll.
Yeah, still on a roll. Ukraine, you mentioned they got through just about. Switzerland made it. Celine Neef made it a bit tough by beating Kostyuk. That was one of a great surprise. Again, taking on the experience and enjoying it, really helping her. We have, as I said, we don't know about the US. Who else got through?
Great Britain. Yeah.
Yes. Just to say that Team GB also made it through, and that's why this tournament is great, because it's something that the Brits are actually decent at. If anything, actually, I was surprised, because obviously I was a little bit worried after Leymans beat Bolter, and I thought we'd be having a conversation about the Netherlands kind of breaking into the world group and kind of being the big underdogs for the finals. And then Bolter and Burridge come out and turned out to be a killer doubles team against a Dutch team that contained Demi Scherz, which is...
Yeah, that I thought when Bolter lost against Leymans, I felt like this can really get tricky at this point, but yeah, they did great in the doubles, and you can perceive, and this is probably a point in their favor as a team, that even though they are players that at times may not play the best tennis in every match they play, even Bolter is a bit up and downs, but it's a team, everybody wants to do well for the other. There's a really good dynamic in the team. So, I feel like they will have a very good chance at the finals as well.
I think I agree. It's going to be, I think there's a lot of really strong teams there. And Italy are going to be very much in the mix as well. They're going to be throwing everything at retaining this title. And I think that when we get to the finals in Shenzhen, that's going to be an exciting time. But yeah, your thought, I want to wrap up by asking you, Mario, do you think moving the Billie Jean King Cup finals to September is a good move?
Oh God, I don't know. But probably it's okay. Because, if I feel like if we want to ask the player some sort of sacrifice, in my opinion, it's better to do it while the season is still very much going on, rather than at the end of it. Because I don't know, even the WTA final, for example, Iga Swiatek, last year she played, but as bad as you may do at the WTA finals, you are still there until Friday. While I don't know, US Open, there's always the chance most of the player, of course, are out in the first week. Of course, in China, then you are right after the 1,000 events. So, it's still pretty much into the season. So, I don't know. I don't consider it a bad move. I feel like it's it may turn out being okay, because if we want to ask the players to sacrifice, I think it's better to do it in the middle of the season rather than when maybe they are like in that sort of vacation mode, or maybe, you know, just burn out after, for example, for the top players, the finals, or maybe for other players, just the end of the season.
I agree. And actually, I would say that another thing I would think about is because of its placement, it's now a great warm-up event for the two China 1000 events, which there's 2,000 points on the table, and you're not going to turn, you're going to be trying to get as much from that as possible if you're a player. It's the same if you put it like a couple of weeks before a slam, you know, on the same surface. That's going to be a huge benefit to them. I think it's going to be a huge attraction for those players. So I think that I could see those 8 teams fielding some strong players when we get to September.
Yeah.
Much to look forward to. September. But we've also got Stuttgart and Rouen to look forward to, mostly Stuttgart, which gets underway tomorrow. Thanks for coming on, Mario. Always great to have you on, and great to see that you are, still great as always.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a big pleasure.
All right. And everyone else, we'll be back next week to wrap up everything that's happened in Stuttgart and Rouen and start looking forward to the next 1000 event in Madrid. As we said, Stuttgart, great one for Madrid. Similar conditions. That's why all the top players are there. It's going to be a blockbuster. I'm looking forward to talking about it all with you. I'll see you then. In the meantime, take care and keep talking tennis.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.